I sat on the swing, watching a spider carefully construct its web. The sun was just minutes away from breaking the horizon, signaling the start of a new day. This particular spider had chosen an interesting spot, the bottom of the children's slide at the neighborhood park. Back and forth it moved, spinning silk across the exit point. The web, nearly 4 inches tall and spanning 18 inches across, was nothing short of an engineering masterpiece. I couldn't help but admire the finished work. A complex, intricate structure, built in just a single night. It's incredible what can be accomplished when you take the bureaucrats out of a project. The first kid down the slide would be the ultimate test for the spider's craftsmanship. But hey, you have to have a plan, right? The spider had one, and he only needed it to work once, to catch a meal big enough to feast like a king. Maybe his plan had a few flaws, but still, nothing ventured, nothing gained. "I'm rooting for you, little guy," I muttered. In a way, my plan was just as absurd as his. But I had one too. Not a soul had heard my voice that morning. Only the spider. It was Monday, day 1 of the plan. And if everything fell into place, soon enough, I'd watch the final domino tip over. My name is Blake Hall. I married Shauna not long after we both graduated from the University of Michigan. We found jobs in the Detroit suburbs and settled into a routine. Our past? Nothing remarkable. Typical college story. Boy meets girl, they date, they break up, they find their way back to each other. I've always struggled with insecurity, and if I'm being honest, it makes me jealous. Sometimes, I'm a real jerk to Shauna. If I don't like how she dresses or how she acts in public, I let her know, loudly. Even in front of others. It's not like she doesn't understand where I'm coming from. We've spent hours talking about actions and consequences. And yet, despite all my flaws, Shauna still chose to marry me. No problems, right? I wish. Shauna and I are both avid shooters. We've taken all the courses, defensive pistol training, the NRA's basic pistol course, everything. To get our concealed carry permits, we had to go through the required training. We also competed in shooting tournaments at the indoor range. Megan was a natural. She'd won the Annie Oakley Award, given to the best female shooter, more than once. I wasn't bad, but I was nowhere near her level. Living in the Detroit suburbs, most areas were pretty safe. But there were definitely a few places where I felt a little better knowing she was armed and knew how to handle herself. We were big sports fans too. Football, basketball, baseball. We still went to games whenever we could. Back in high school, I played all three, but once I got to college, I focused more on my studies. Well, that and the fact that I wasn't anywhere near talented enough to compete at the collegiate level. Last Thursday, Greg slammed his fist on his desk. "Oh hell, it's gonna take me forever to get home." I looked up. "How do you know that?" He pointed at his screen. "I'm watching the traffic cam at the junction of Highway 7 and 82. There's a pickup on its side and a car flipped upside down. No way that stretch is opening tonight. You should see this." Curious, I walked over from my cubicle to his and glanced at the screen on his laptop. My stomach twisted. Standing with the paramedics, gauze wrapped around her head, was Megan. At least, I was pretty sure it was her. Her left arm, covered in tattoos from shoulder to wrist, was hard to miss. But the people in the video were just small enough that I couldn't be 100% certain. Apparently, her flight to Chicago had left without her yesterday. I squinted at the wreckage. The overturned truck looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. I leaned in. "Greg, can you grab some snapshots of this?" Without looking away from the screen, he nodded. "I can, but only until I switch cams. I can save the video from when I started watching, though. You can pull snapshots from that." I stared at the wreckage, a strange sense of familiarity creeping in. Something about that truck, it looked too familiar. I racked my brain, trying to place it. I knew that truck from somewhere. Greg saved the video, zoomed in on a frame, and emailed it to me. The more I looked, the more certain I became. That was Jessica. Last night's phone call suddenly felt like complete nonsense. Uneventful flight, nice hotel room, meetings went well. "Miss you. Busy day tomorrow, late flight. Don't wait up for me." The words echoed in my head. And now? Now I was watching her stand next to a totaled truck on a traffic cam. On the drive home, I could barely focus. How long had I been an idiot? How long had I been played? And why the hell did I know that truck? I went through every possibility. Friends, family, neighbors, but nothing clicked. Still, the blue and yellow stripes on the side of that pickup haunted me. Who did it belong to? At around 7 p.m., my phone rang. Jessica. I let it go to voicemail. Hey, babe, bad news. My cab to the airport got into an accident. I'm okay, but I got a cut on my forehead. Long story short, I missed my flight. I'll let you know when I know. Love you. Call me. My heart hadn't stopped pounding since I first saw that image. Betrayal twisted in my stomach, burning hot. My hands were shaking, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt I couldn't even eat. The realization that my marriage was nothing but a lie hit me hard. I wanted revenge, on Jessica, on him, whoever he was. I spent the next few hours tearing through the house, searching for something. I didn't even know what I was looking for. But the anger kept me moving. Nothing stood out. So, I took a different approach. I pulled up our credit card statements. Jessica traveled at least twice a month, so if she was slipping up, there had to be something in her spending history. And I was right, every other month, there was one trip with zero credit card activity. On those trips, the only charge on her personal card was for airport parking. Jessica always used her business credit card for flights, hotels, and transportation. Everything else? That went on her personal card, and she'd submit an expense report later. And yet, somehow, on these particular trips, there was no record of her spending. Am I supposed to believe she paid cash for everything? That she just didn't eat for 2 days? After seeing that traffic cam footage, I knew the truth. She wasn't on business trips. She was spending 2 days wrapped up in some secret love fest. I just needed to figure out who she was with. Actually, that part was easy. All I had to do was request a copy of the accident report. Jessica kept a filing cabinet full of important documents. I wondered if her expense reports were in there too. She was so organized that it only took me a few minutes to find the right folder. And in less than a minute, I had my confirmation, the trips with no credit card usage? Yeah, she hadn't reported those on her expense account either. I wanted to drink, badly. But I knew better. Does it even matter how long this has been going on? Not really. Her betrayal was cold, calculated, heartless. And my revenge? It would be just as precise. When it came to the divorce, I'd be fair. What choice did I have? She'd get her 50%. A prenup? Yeah, right. I wish. She was getting her half, whether I liked it or not. That night, sleep didn't come easy. And in the morning, even coffee wasn't enough to get me going. When I turned on my phone, there was a message from Jessica. She'd be home later today. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I went to work, spent some time scanning the internet for divorce advice, and then took a hard look at our joint accounts. First, I needed to open an account in my name only. The brokerage account was going to be trickier. There was no way to just move my share, so I sold off enough to hit the 50% mark. Once that's settled, I'd come back for the rest and transfer my half out when the time was right. As for the house, we were basically underwater on it, so there was nothing to do there. I didn't say a word to my friends, family, or coworkers about the divorce. The last thing I wanted was to tip my hand too soon. At lunch, I picked up a copy of the police report from the accident. There it was, in black and white. No more doubts. She was listed as the injured passenger in the pickup. The truck's owner? Some guy named Ray Stronzo. The name didn't ring a bell, but I knew I had seen that damn truck before. It still bugged me that I recognized it without knowing why. At least now I had an address. A quick online search pulled up the property records. Turns out, Ray Stronzo owned the house along with a woman named Jill Stronzo. I was willing to bet that was his wife. Some more digging gave me a little background on both of them. Ray and Jill had gone to the same high school as Emily. Then, right before quitting time, Emily called. I figured I'd better pick up. If I ignored her again, she'd start to get suspicious. "You're back." I've been trying to call you since last night. Is everything okay? I kept my voice steady. I'm surviving. Weird thing, though, I found my phone powered off this morning. Then again around lunch. Probably should get it checked out. How was your trip? It was fine until the cab ride. I'm gonna have to pile on the makeup to cover this cut. She let out a small laugh. Take a girl to dinner? Sure, I said. Something light, though. I'm not really hungry. Pick a place. I'll meet you there. Before heading to the restaurant, I took a detour. I drove by the Stronzo house. No sign of the truck. But something on the porch caught my eye, a University of Michigan flag swaying gently in the breeze. And that was when it finally clicked. That truck? It was the same one we always saw when we were tailgating at Michigan football games in Ann Arbor. Those blue and yellow stripes? They weren't just random. Ray and his wife had always tailgate in the same area as us. And all this time, I had just assumed they were another married couple, like us. I tried to act normal at dinner. Really, I did, but Jessica could tell something was off. Is something bothering you, Adam? You seem really distracted tonight. I forced a small smile. Just a lot on my mind. Don't worry about it. Later, when she started her usual nighttime routine, wiping away her makeup, I crawled into bed and pretended to be asleep. A few minutes later, she slid in beside me, completely naked, and snuggled up close. All I had to do was picture her betrayal, and any desire I might have had disappeared. She nudged me, hoping for a response, but when I didn't react, she eventually gave up. By the time I left for work the next morning, she was still asleep. That was when I tore through her car. And sure enough, hidden deep in the back seat cushions, I found a second phone. I powered it on, scrolled through the texts, and, just like that, any lingering doubts were erased. Jessica and Ryan had been at this for months. Maybe even longer. But one text in particular? That was what really sent me over the edge. Well, kids, I'm not sure what your punishment is gonna be, but there will be a price to pay. I'm not a violent guy. I couldn't see myself getting physical with either of them. But that didn't mean I wasn't going to do something. I just needed to get creative. Making an appointment with a divorce attorney wasn't part of the plan. If I wanted this to play out the way I envisioned, I had to act like I had no idea about the affair. If my plan worked, I'd need to move fast to protect what I could. So, I spent the weekend preparing. I bought what I needed. Avoided Jessica as much as possible. She wanted to have sex on Saturday. I went through the motions, got on, got off, and rolled over to sleep. Sunday night, she tried again. But just like before, all I had to do was picture her with him, and any attraction I had was gone. Frustrated, she finally gave up, and we both drifted off. Monday morning, I woke up early and took a walk to the park. I needed to be sure. Was this really the path I wanted to take? Then I thought back to that text message. And that was all the confirmation I needed. I really thought I had everything under control. Until that phone call. Monday mornings are always a whirlwind at work. I spend hours handling back-to-back calls, barely catching a break. So when my office phone rang, I didn't think twice before answering. The caller ID just said private. This is Rachel. A quiet male voice came through the line. It had this high, nasal pitch, instantly irritating. I know what you're doing with Ryan, he said. I want in on the action. And just like that, he hung up. My stomach dropped. I'd been found out. The rest of the day? A total blur. Even that night, I wasn't myself. Every night, Adam and I have this little routine. We sit together with a cup of hot tea before bed. It's something that helps both of us unwind. As he handed me my mug, he studied me. Are you sure you're okay? You seem really off tonight. I'm fine, I lied, forcing a smile. Just some work stuff. It's been frustrating. I leaned in closer, trailing my fingers up his arm. I need a distraction. Got any ideas? In my head, I'd already made a decision. No one was going to blackmail me. I'd wait to see what this person did next. That night, I barely slept. I kept picturing Adam finding out. By morning, I had convinced myself I had to stop seeing Ryan. I had to shut this thing down before it got worse. But then, my phone rang again. "This is Rachel." It was the same voice. "Ready to come please me?" "No, I'm not," I snapped, hanging up before he could say anything else. Less than a minute later, another call came through. I swallowed hard. "This is Rachel." His tone was different this time. Amused. Confident. "Both of you snore," he said. "You wore a blue teddy last night. You sleep on the right side of the bed. No panties. I got a nice picture of your body." I gasped. But before I could say a word, he hung up. My hands were shaking. I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up. By the time work was over, I was exhausted, drained, and on edge. But when I got to my car, there was a small envelope pinned under the windshield wiper. I sat in the driver's seat and cried for 30 minutes. Seeing that picture, the one he took while I was sleeping, made my stomach turn. He had been in my bedroom. I felt sick. Violated. What the hell had I gotten myself into? That night, I threw myself into anything that would keep my mind busy. Paying bills, organizing paperwork for taxes, anything to distract me. How did he get in? Did he sneak in while we were asleep? Was this someone Ryan knew? A friend? Or maybe an enemy? The voice wasn't familiar. I would have remembered it, that annoying nasal tone. "Adam, do you think we should put latches on the doors?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Probably." "Why?" "What's on your mind?" he asked, glancing up from his laptop. "I've been hearing about a lot of break-ins lately," I said. "I just don't want to risk someone getting inside while we're home." "I'll add it to the list," he said with a shrug. That night, I barely slept. Every single noise in the house sent my heart racing. And by morning, my nightmare continued. Another call. I swallowed hard and picked up. "This is Rachel." That voice, the one I'd been dreading, came through the line. "Cute pajamas last night. No body shot for me, though. Ready to be my love slave?" My blood ran cold. "Who the hell are you? What do you want?" I demanded. He chuckled. "You already know. Ever tried restraints? Your place or mine?" I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. "Come to my place, asshole," I spat. "I'll put a hole the size of a tennis ball in your chest." Silence. Then he hung up. My hands were shaking as I set the phone down. I managed to get a 2-hour lunch break that day, but I wasn't okay. Who could I even turn to? No one knew about my affair with Ryan. At least no one that should know. But someone did. And they were watching me. Adam and I had been intimate again recently, but now I was starting to wonder. Did he know? He wasn't acting any differently. But then again, when was the last time we actually made love? Had I been so wrapped up in Ryan that I let my marriage slip away without noticing? I was exhausted. 2 hours of sleep a night was starting to take its toll. "Ethan, I think I'm coming down with something," I said, rubbing my temples. "I'm gonna sleep in the guest room so you don't catch it." He shook his head. "No, no, no. With my back. I'll take the guest bed. The mattress is firmer. I actually prefer it." I hesitated. "I've been having nightmares. I'm gonna keep my gun with me at night, so just make some noise before coming into the room, okay?" Ethan smirked. "Got it. Last thing I need is you going all Annie Oakley on me." He paused, then added, "Why don't I put a lock on the bedroom door? I'll add it to my honey-do list." "Yeah, okay. Sleep tight," he said before heading down the hall. And that's when it hit me. Sleep tight. That's not what he usually says. Where was the "love you"? When was the last time I'd even heard him say that? Once Ethan was settled in the guest room, I pushed a chair up against my bedroom door. Then I set a few small trinkets on the windowsill and slid my gun under Ethan's pillow. If that stalker tried anything tonight, hopefully, he'd make just enough noise to wake me, so I could put a bullet in his back. Then another call came in. I swallowed hard and answered. "This is Jenna." A smug voice responded. "Well, I stopped by, but I don't see a hole in my chest." Cute trinkets, by the way. Took a few for myself. My throat tightened. Since Ethan's in the other bedroom, he continued, maybe I could slip him something. Knock him out for a while. Then you and I could finally have some fun. That headboard of yours? Perfect for handcuffs. And then he hung up. I could barely breathe. I tore home on my lunch break, ran straight to the bedroom, and, sure enough, 3 of the trinkets were gone. My stomach lurched, and I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up. What the hell had I gotten myself into? If I went to the police, Ethan would find out about my affair. But if I didn't? No way. I wasn't going to be some stalker's plaything. I had to tell someone. Ryan wanted to meet up that night, but I told him I couldn't. I kept a burner phone in my car. That's how we talked. I texted him that we needed to lay low for a while. He wasn't happy about that. His messages made that very clear. And now, I couldn't stop wondering, how did my stalker even find me? I felt completely lost. Terrified. Was this guy following Ryan? Should I just give in and do what he wants? But if I do, where does it stop? Maybe I should just tell Ethan and let him help me. But how do I even begin to explain this? My head was such a mess that it started affecting my job. My boss pulled me aside for one of those motivational talks, the kind I'd never needed before. God, that was humiliating. As I walked out of his office, I could feel people watching me, whispering. I barely held it together until I got home. Then I broke down. I cried for an hour before Ethan got back. When I finally pulled myself together, I washed my face, touched up my makeup, and sat down for dinner with him like nothing was wrong. That night, I strung bells on the window and the bedroom door. Try sneaking in now, you sick bastard. Friday morning, I forced myself to focus. Tried to be productive. It worked, until he called. I swallowed hard and answered. This is Lisa. His voice sent a chill through me. Nice touch with the bells. Had me worried for a second. I gripped the phone tighter. But you slept right through it anyway, he continued. Did you notice I emptied your gun? Left the bullets on the windowsill. Oh, and I returned those little trinkets I borrowed. Thought you'd like that. So are you ready for me now? I could barely breathe. I needed Ethan. I couldn't do this alone. But if I told him, would I still have to face this alone? What a goddamn mess. At least the weekend was coming. No work meant no creepy calls at my desk. But then my stomach sank. What if he planned something for this weekend? I hadn't been in the mood for anything physical, and Ethan didn't seem to mind avoiding me. We were basically just coexisting at this point. I had a work trip scheduled for Wednesday. Should I go? Or cancel? Was this psycho crazy enough to follow me? Saturday morning, I finished my shower and stepped into the bedroom. Ethan was still sound asleep. That was odd. He never slept late. I nudged him. Then shook him. Nothing. My heart started pounding. I shook him harder, and finally he groggily stirred, blinking up at me like he had no idea where he was. Jesus, he muttered, rubbing his eyes. I feel like I got hit by a truck. What time is it? Almost 9. I sat next to him, placing a hand on his neck. You okay? He flinched. Ow. What the hell? I leaned in and saw a red, swollen spot at the base of his neck. It looked like a spider bite. Or something worse. Let me get you a patch for that, I said, trying to keep calm. The rest of the morning went by like a normal weekend. Chores, cleaning up. Ethan left around lunchtime to grab some Jamba Juice, and my phone rang while I was cleaning. The caller ID said, private. My mom used to hide her number too, so I answered. Hello. I barely heard the voice on the other end, but it was chilling. I tried my tranquilizer dart on Ethan last night. Looks like he's still alive. Guess we're good to go. I'll bring some KY for you. I couldn't hold the phone steady. My hands were shaking, and my legs were like jelly. My stomach twisted. Before I knew it, I threw up. I sprayed deodorizer around to cover up the smell. I had to tell Ethan. But I couldn't. I was so lost. How could I keep this secret? I had no idea what to do anymore. Why had I gotten myself into this? For what? Some temporary, meaningless intimacy with Ryan? It wasn't even love. Hell, Ryan had never been that great in high school. What the hell was I thinking? Sunday came, and things didn't improve. Every time my phone rang, my blood pressure shot up. It was him again. Ethan was outside, working on the mower. I grabbed the phone. Hello? Time's up, Shauna. Next time you're alone, you're mine. Before I could even respond, the line went dead. I was shaking, sweating. Sooner or later, I'd be alone. I couldn't handle this much longer. The day dragged. I kept glancing at the clock, knowing it was getting closer to bedtime. I didn't want to sleep. Just before bed, things got worse. I've got to go back to the office, Ethan said, rushing around. I shouldn't be gone for more than 90 minutes. Please don't go, I begged him. Can't it wait until morning? I asked, trying to buy time. I won't be long. I'll see you in a bit. I locked up the house, checked all the windows, all the doors. I made sure to lock the bedroom door and set up the bells. Then I sat down on the bed, lights on, gun in hand, tucked under the pillow. I checked the magazine and confirmed the gun was loaded. My heart was racing when I heard the floor creak. Panic set in. I hesitated for a moment, pointing the gun at the door and the window. Then I heard the doorbell ding. Without thinking, I fired. I heard a groan, so I fired again. And again. And again. The door swung open, and a body in black collapsed, face down. I was shaking so much, I couldn't control myself. Looking down, I realized I had peed in the bed. My hands were trembling so bad, I had trouble dialing my phone. I finally got through. 911, what's your emergency? I just shot someone in my house. I've got a gun aimed at the body. I'm too scared to go near it. Try to stay calm, ma'am. Can you give me your address? 5 minutes later, though it felt like hours, the first squad car arrived. A minute after that, the ambulance showed up, along with paramedics. Within 30 minutes, the house was filled with police. All I could think was, where the hell is Ethan? In our state, we have what's called the Make My Day law. If someone breaks into your house, you can defend yourself however you see fit. If the intruder dies, it's considered an open and shut case. The paramedics worked quickly, getting the man to the hospital. He'd lost a lot of blood, but he was still alive. From Ethan's perspective, I told Shauna I was headed to the office. Once in the garage, I put on latex gloves. I found Shauna's burner phone in her car, copied the text that had me seething, and sent it to Ryan. I made sure it was unchanged, just like she'd sent it months ago. The timestamp was almost exactly the same as before. I put the phone back where I found it and pulled out of the driveway. I waited for her bedroom light to be the only one on. It didn't take long. I walked up, unlocked the front door, and headed out. Soon, I was at my office. We've got tons of security cameras, and I needed my access card to get through the gate. I walked into the building, then headed straight to my office. I turned on my computer but just sat there, wondering if it would actually work. After I came up with my plan, I went and bought a burner phone and downloaded a voice disguise app. I could already sense the panic in Shauna's behavior that first night at home. Every night, I'd slip a sleeping sedative into her hot tea, and once she drank it, she was out cold. On the first night, I repositioned her so I could get a nice shot of her body. I printed the photo on our printer. The panic in her voice the next day was exactly what I'd been hoping for. Each night, she'd be knocked out so I could make all the noise I wanted without her stirring. Around 3 a.m. on Friday night, I got up, grabbed a safety pin, and poked a hole in the back of my neck. Once I saw blood, I flushed the safety pin and took 3 sleeping pills, quickly passing out. I thought about the text from a few months ago that I'd resent a while back. He just left for the office. Get over here for some love. You don't have much time. I figured I'd go home in about an hour or so, or when the police called. If it was an hour, that meant the plan failed. If it was the police calling, then I knew it was a success. My phone rang, and it was a call from my local government. "This is Blake," I answered. Mr. F.L.E., who is this? I asked. Sir, this is Sergeant Willis. There's been a shooting at your house. Your wife is unharmed, though she's pretty shaken up. Are you able to come home and comfort her? I'm on my way. I should be there in about 10 minutes. Isn't it amazing when a plan comes together? I arrived home to find the neighborhood lit up with flashing red and blue lights. I worked my way past the officers and entered the house. As soon as Shauna spotted me, she jumped up and gave me a crushing hug, sobbing uncontrollably. Detective Sampson sat down across from us while Shauna continued to cry. Mrs. Foley, the name of the intruder is Ray Stronzo. Do you know him? Oh God, no. Oh hell, I'm so sorry, Blake. She started crying uncontrollably. Sorry, Detective, my wife's obviously shaken up by all of this. Can you give her a minute to pull herself together? All right, let's try this again. So, you do know Ray Stronzo, right? She whispered softly. We went to high school together. About that time, an officer tapped Detective Sampson on the shoulder and whispered something in his ear. He stood up and left the room for just a minute. I did my best to look shocked when he came back in. Mrs. Foley, Detective Sampson said, I'm going to have to take you in for questioning. Officer, please cuff her. Shauna Foley, you have the right to remain silent. Once Miranda was finished, I asked, What's going on, Detective? We found his cell phone. Your wife invited him over this evening. We've got some investigating to do. What the hell, you cheating woman? Blake, I didn't do anything. Please, don't leave. I need you. I stormed out of the house, not looking back. It was all I could do to keep from smirking. I watched from the driveway as they led Shauna away. She was still begging, Help me, Blake. Please, help me. Not a chance. It's just a matter of time before they find your phone, and the text you sent inviting Ray over. I made sure they locked up the house after putting up the yellow tape. I spent the night at a motel. The next morning, I grabbed a large decaf coffee and headed for the park. It looked like my little spider friend was trying again. Don't stop believing, buddy. Even the most outrageous plans have a shot at working. Shauna used her one call to get her parents involved. The police secured a search warrant and found Shauna's burner phone, which had a history of texts to Ray. Shauna and Ray had been using burner phones, texting and talking to each other. It didn't look good for her. My first move? Starting the divorce proceedings. I made sure to document everything. Finances, accounts, the works. Shauna would get her 50%, but I wasn't going to cover her legal fees for attempted murder. I took 50% of the cash from our joint accounts, opened one in my name, and changed my payroll direct deposit to that account. The brokerage account wasn't hard to deal with. Half of it was in cash. I got the divorce attorney to kick things off before Ray could take any legal steps. That worked out. He reassured me things would be fine once the yellow tape came down. When it did, I packed up all of Shauna's stuff and dropped it at her parents' place. I hired professionals to clean the house, and my lawyer came along with me to the only police questioning I had to attend. Shauna was trying to convince the cops that I set her up. She insisted she hadn't sent that last text. When they asked about cell tower data from her phones, they confirmed it matched my story. The cops assumed she was guilty, cold-blooded criminal, they called her. Apparently, Annie Oakley can't handle pressure. Only 2 of the 5 bullets hit. One tore through his kidney, the other grazed his right ear. Honestly, I can live with that. I'd hoped for more after all that pistol training, but whatever. I watched from the gallery as Shauna pleaded her case. She said she was being stalked but didn't tell anyone because of her affair. She claimed she never sent the last text and that I must have known about it and framed her. The press found out she was offered a plea deal. I guess her overconfidence got the best of her. Guilty. 20 years. I didn't wait for the divorce to finalize before I started sleeping around. Once your wife's in prison, there are plenty of groups willing to help out the humiliated husband. Shauna's assets disappeared fast while she fought for her freedom. I wasn't on the hook for anything. Even if Ray tried to sue me, there was nothing of value left in our joint assets. Paying for some moral victory didn't make sense. So, no lawsuit ever came up. I do need to figure out how to handle the jealousy thing, though. And that's the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below, and let's talk about it. If this story kept you hooked, hit that like button. If you're new here, or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. I bring fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.